Life is tough, guys. Like, nobody wants to be around leeches. Nobody has time for leeches. Like, go and be with other leeches over there and leech on yourselves.
They don't attract each other.
They don't. The irony. Opposites attract. That's the irony of it all.
The sapiosexual platter.
Why is it that the people who are given the most appreciate it the least? Why is it that givers often attract takers, and takers who take and take without giving back? Is it fair to expect reciprocity? In this episode, we'll be delving into the ever complex paradox between givers and takers. My name is Shatani Somalagai.
And I am Belle Seabo.
Welcome
to the sapiosexual platter. This one is close to the heart.
Yeah,
Very close to the heart.
I felt triggered even as I was like doing the intro. It was taking me back to memory lane.
I think what is more intense than just in the paradox of givers and takers, it's not the actual giving and the taking that is the issue today. I think it's more people who give often at times attract those rare instances of finding leeches in their lives.
Yeah.
And
that's the right word.
Yeah. Leeches. And they receive, they take. And it's the receiving and the taking that's not the issue, but it's more how out of all the people they would have in their lives, they tend to mistreat the givers. The ones that give the most get treated the worst.
Yeah.
So that's the main issue of why we're having this conversation today, because you would think if somebody treated you good, that's the person where you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to do this for them. Exactly. I'm going to spoil them this way. I'm going to do this. And we give because we think people would connect with us, would like us, would see the worth in us and the value in us and treat us accordingly, or treat those givers accordingly to what they're trying to achieve. But it ends up creating the reverse.
It ends up being the exact opposite.
Exactly.
In terms of the result. It's true. The people that are often mistreated treat the mistreater better. It's the truth, eh? You find the person that insults you, that, draws their boundaries, that pushes the boundaries, as it were.
Yeah.
You'll find that person is treated well.
What's syndrome called?
It's a syndrome. Which one?
The one of your abuser. And then you become addicted to them.
What is it? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Guys, put it in the comment section.
Please.
What is?
We're gonna remember.
It's like escaped my mind, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's that thing where
it's in law as well. They use it a lot.
Yeah.
I forgot what it is.
What is it? Is it not battered woman syndrome, or isn't it that?
No, the battered woman defense is more when
you come back and you beat
when you kill your husband. So that's the battered woman one. That's a different one. But there's one where you are addicted to your abuser.
Yes.
And you literally roll out the red carpet for
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the people who be treating you well in your life.
Yeah.
It's even in movies where like the nice guy who'll be doing things for you, doing things for the girl, and you see throughout the movie how nice he is, how kind he is to her, and how much he sees her.
Yeah.
And she'll be attracted to that popular narcissistic guy who hasn't got a care in the world for her. And it's just like the guy who's nice you mistreat, but the guy who doesn't see you for nothing, that's the one that you are drawn to. It's very fascinating, like human behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what's interesting about this topic is just the fact that who's at fault? Should the nice guy continue to give, or should the nice guy be upset by the fact that the girl doesn't see his efforts? What's the posture and what's the right, way to be in that kind of situation or scenario?
Yeah. I think when you have the less enlightened mind, you would definitely see the person who is the giver as the person in the right, and the person who is just doing the taking as the person who's in the wrong. And I say less enlightened because it almost is that the person who perceives it in that way has like maybe a victim mentality.
Yeah.
Where you feel like, oh my God, I'm a giver, or that person is such a giver and this person mistreated them. Oh my God, that person is so horrible. It's like, why are you a victim in your own life that just because people are not behaving a certain way or responding a certain way to your giving, then you just feel like, oh my God, they're terrible and you are so good. And like,
and we've
it's a victim stance.
We've been
victims.
We've been victims.
God forbid. Thank God we're here.
I've been the victim of that, where I went through a season where I kept having those kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
One friendship starts, I go all in. Relationship starts, I go all in.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm just so heavily disappointed by the absence of reciprocity.
Yeah. Do you know the one that sorry to cut you short, that keeps ringing in my mind today?
Yeah.
The wine one. That one, I'll never get over that one. Oh my God.
Guys, oh my God. I don't even want to say, because I feel like the people be listening and they'll know themselves. So let's just leave
it's
it.
fine. We'll leave it there.
But
like it.
Bob. So, yeah, I kept attracting those kinds of scenarios where you meet someone, you give your all, then in the end you're just upset that they didn't recognize the magnitude of how much you gave in thoughts and gifts and time and service, presence and I'm the kind of person, when I give even with all my resources and my whole village of people network like I do, like grand, and then just developing so much resentment, and then sitting with somebody who also suffered the same sickness, and we just sit together and go, yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah.
Why didn't they understand?
We're so holier than that. And then you evolve in life and you realize that you're actually toxic. There are things like toxic positivity. There are things like irresponsible giving. Yeah, we need to get into the art of responsible giving, and that's why we're having this conversation, because the common stance with society would be that the giver is such a good person, and which they would be, and that the other person is not a good person. And then you just evolve and you realize that maybe people were not able to receive your light, your giving, for whatever reason, announced to them. But you're a better person to dissect this whole issue of like shameful receiving.
So guys, lesson time, classes started. So guys, I recently came across this concept, which I shared with her when she came back from her travels in her soft feminine era. And I found out about this concept where in terms of giving, all of us are kind of like vessels, and we have certain capacities. We meet people, we assume that they have just as large as a vessel as we do, and have the ability to take on as much as we do. And so what we do is then, without making any form of assessment, without taking time to find out who they are, what their needs are, we just pour. And imagine pouring in a cup that has a small capacity, and you're giving so much. What happens is you're actually spoiling, you're like ruining that vessel.
Because it can end up having cracks out of the pressure of the water.
The pressure of so much giving.
Spilling out.
Creating
a mess.
So apparently what is happening, and then because you're breaking that vessel, then that person does everything to get away from you.
You know what analogy I just had in mind right now? It's like a stadium. if you fill it more than the capacity,
Yeah.
what happens?
Falls apart.
Vandalized.
It's vandalized, so it's just that simple.
Yeah.
That you meet people and you don't recognize or take time to appreciate what they can hold in terms of what they are able to receive. So a good example is like rich people's children.
Yeah.
They come into a life where they have everything.
Well, some rich people.
Well, some of them, but the phenomena, if you notice, and let's talk about the movies, right? The rich kids in the movies often end up, rebellious, on drugs, and just having almost like a difficult life where you think that because you were born into so much privilege,
Yeah.
life should be so much simpler for you.
Yeah.
But then it's the fact that they come into a life where they're given things that they haven't earned. And so the vessel at the time when they're receiving things is too small to receive the overflow of what their parents is giving them.
Yeah.
When they have parents that don't have the ability to discern whether this is a good time to give my child this BMW, at 16, when they don't even know, how to work, And so it's just a very fascinating concept when I learned about it, where I was like, oh, so all this time I've been giving to people who don't have an appreciation of what I'm giving, who don't have the capacity to receive, and who haven't earned it,
Like what I'm thinking when you're saying this is, why is it that we as human beings are able to say, I have to pour into this cup this much.
Yeah.
I have to fill up a stadium or an arena with this amount of people. This bucket can only take so much
many
stones or so much water.
Yeah.
With us as human beings, it's like we don't discern the saturation of it's enough.
Yeah, for this person.
For this person,
Yeah.
you've put in enough. Like just the same way that we can see it with physical objects and vessels and be like, okay, this can only take this much. We never tend to do that with ourselves, as humans. It's like we're
That's
exempt
a very
from those
powerful
laws.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly it. So that you walk through life with this idea that you're this giver.
Yeah.
This person with so much abundance, but you never take the time to assess whether your abundance is being directed towards, the right place.
Yeah.
And so then it was this light bulb moment.
Through my spiritual journey, and I just did myself, but when I heard the concept from you, I then looked at the people within my country. And I was like, that's interesting. So for those who are watching and are not from Botswana, Botswana is a very abundant country. From birth, you get from when your mom is pregnant in Botswana, they get supplements, they get free health care. When they give birth, they can receive food from the government every single month for the baby. Your education is paid for up to university level. If you wanted to go abroad, you could go abroad and the government pays for you. If you come out of school and you don't get a job.
And just to qualify abroad, this
Yeah.
is like, the highest learning institutions in the world.
Exactly.
Tuition paid for. You get a stipend. You get a book fee, a book allowance,
settling allowance,
clothing
allowance,
medical aid.
Yeah.
Like basically, your parents don't even have to send a thebe or a dollar or a cent. It's all paid for. Yeah.
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 And then if you come out of your school and you haven't found a job, you can go for microfinancing initiatives. There's several ones in the country. And then infrastructure also, it's great. Mind you, as Botswana, we moved from the second poorest country in the world to one of the well-earning countries in the world, in Africa. And you then look at the people, and the people aren't happy.
Yeah.
The people are unhappy. They criticize the government. They insult the government. The government is not doing enough. The government is corrupt. The government is that. And some of those accusations have their merit. But you also have to balance things out to say, what is the 80-20
In this scenario.
in this situation? And without a doubt, people are comfortable. Living here is very comfortable. But all the different opportunities that they have, all these great things that are happening, they can't see them.
Yeah.
And then when I look at the bread of shame, I'm like, oh, if you got given like $10,000 to start a business and you did not earn that 10,000 US dollars, you didn't have to prove yourself too much, and there isn't sort of
Like
like
a strict criteria.
a strict criteria of you returning that money,
Yeah.
then explains the dynamic of insulting the government and
All the
feeling like the
time.
government is not doing enough
And asking for more.
and asking for more and
Yeah.
mistreating it. And it's always just the weird one where I'm like, oh my God, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
And then you take that same concept and then now apply it to Africa.
Yeah.
And Africa's interaction with the world and why we're even called third world countries is beyond me.
Yeah.
Like, who made you first world? And when you look at that dynamic where you're like, oh, Africa is a third world country, but where do you get your diamonds? Where do you get your zinc? Where do you get all the minerals to create all these wonderful creations that you are creating all over the world? Mm-hmm. Where do you get them?
From Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then after you get them from Africa, then what? Oh my God, Africans are thieves. Oh my God, they live in like barbarians. Oh my God, they're so backwards. It's
Yeah.
insult after insult after insult. Mm-hmm. The bread of shame.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, you know what? The truth is, I think I've mulled over this topic enough that I don't get as passionate about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But trust and believe, I literally had that same energy and passion when I realized, oh, this is what's actually going on. Because for years, even my position with respect to Botswana, for example, was I wish there was some way that we could not necessarily end free education, but just have it more balanced, because I just didn't believe there was a return on an investment. I felt like with Botswana, we get to demand more, but we can never say, what return on investment have we given to a government that has quite literally paid for your undergrad and your master's and your PhD. When we measure the value of your contribution back to the country, can we say it is sufficient enough for us to be demanding more allowance, more and more that we demand all the time?
Are you reciprocating?
Are
What
you
giving to the
reciprocating?
government?
What is your service to the world, I mean, to the country? And then after learning about this, the concept of spoiling the vessel,
Yeah.
it's just realizing, oh, technically as a nation, our vessel has been spoiled, and we're spoiled, and so we're literally.
So that's where the word spoiled comes
Yes,
from.
exactly.
You're spoiling the person.
We're spoiled.
Yo.
We're spoiled.
Oh my God.
We're spoiled because you've received for such a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't it's that giver taker dynamic where you're
Yeah.
giving, and the person that has been given appreciates the least. And it always takes somebody from outside who tells you about where they come from to say, are you serious? You're telling me that you're getting free education and free health and free this and free that, and look at your country and look at this. And they think to themselves, if I was in that scenario, what I would do with my life, with all of the opportunity and privilege that is accorded to a Motswana. And Botswana, like, yeah, the allowance needs to go up. It's 1.9, and the new government better make sure that it's 2.5 and deliver according to the manifesto promises.
Yeah. And then with interaction with Africa.
It's the fact that Donald Trump decides to withhold US aid, and everybody's in an uproar.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you've just been given so much. And in other countries, African countries, I can appreciate the uproar. Whereas with Botswana, I'm like, do we really not have capacity to continue to do what US aid was doing in Botswana? I don't understand. Like, I had to have a chat with a few people in government and in those positions to try and understand, why are we in an uproar? Because as far as I'm concerned, I think Botswana has the resources to be able to do what USAID was doing. But we're so...
But I think in that dynamic, for me, what I'll look at and say is the uproar. It's not... Because the conversation here is how giving can actually cause damage, right?
Yeah.
I don't think America should put itself at a stance where it thinks it's a giver. I don't think so. I think America is a huge taker. America takes our attention. a lot of the movies that we watch are American movies. We consume American content.
Yeah.
America is able to monetize its content because of how we consume it. So we consume a lot from America. We buy a lot from America. So America can't pretend that it's just a giver in a scenario and that Africans are just takers because that's not the reality. And with the point that I was making was that we have the minerals in Africa. We have different resources in Africa. So for you as Donald Trump to wake up one day and be like, oh my God, I'm going to pull out, I'm going for a tax war. I'm going to, create all these different tariffs and, look down on Africans and cut off US aid and whatnot. It's that. It's a vessel that has been given too much that now it's insulting the giver.
So that's what's interesting about your perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's then in any given situation trying to assess who's the taker really, who's the giver really. And so even you just sharing, I was like, oh, I didn't think about it from that perspective. In my analysis of the situation, my thinking is that Africans deem themselves in the situation as the takers. They deem themselves as the people who are receiving, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it depends what level of African.
Okay, fine.
What that person
The
is thinking
uproar.
from.
If you were dissecting and just reading through what people's issues were, it was the fact that we were not given enough sufficient notice before the announcement to withdraw. It's the fact that we're not in a position to be able to sustain things that have been that the USAID has provided. It was almost the same as like if the government were to wake up and say we're not giving free education anymore. That was the reaction to it, right? For a lot of people, that was why they were actually upset.
But I think beyond that, it was also people upset because obviously America puts itself in this stance where we must all bow down to America.
Yeah.
We can just wake up because this is international relations. All relationships, there's always a give and take from both ends.
For sure.
It's not always just imbalanced. So you can't even just, in addressing a scenario, act like it's imbalanced and you are the giver.
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying what in addition to that, it was just not an uproar from people who are like, oh, how is this going to be sustained? It's also an uproar in terms of we have bilateral agreements.
Yes.
There's a way that we do things. So you can't just wake up one day and decide that you feel like you're so much of a giver that you're just gonna cut.
Yeah, so that's what I thought was interesting about your analysis is now this idea of, oh, in fact, America's behavior is spoiled behavior.
It's spoilt behavior.
So ungrateful that you can wake up and just without any notice, cut off and ghost, and I was like, oh, that's what I'm saying. This is a very stimulating conversation in that sense that I was only perceiving it from the perception of those who were upset by we can't sustain things that we've been sustaining, and it would have been nice if you got some notice. But then you're also bringing it from the perspective of the other side to say, but that behavior, if you think about it, is very similar.
Spoilt behavior.
Of, the person that's given a lot and, it's the bread of shame.
It's the bread of shame.
As it were.
Because even these organizations that you see, there's a reason why they were placed in Africa. It wasn't, oh, let's just help you helpless people.
No, they are directly helping.
It was very strategic.
Yeah, they're helping lots of people in America.
Yeah.
Farmers. The chain is quite is quite diverse, and it's also it's a huge chain.
Yeah,
it was also interesting to hear the Americans and also complain about the withdrawal of the aid because of how it was affecting them and affecting a massive number of them, and it was like, oh wow, that's very fascinating. But yeah, so that is this concept of overgiving on a personal relational level, on a national level, then also on the international plane. What are your final thoughts on the issue and the fact that you might actually be the problem? You, Bob, you're the problem.
Yeah, who would have ever thought? Who would have ever thought that giving will create shame? But I think it's for me, it will be to be intentional about how we conceptualize different attributes, even if they are considered to be good.
Powerful.
Yeah. To say, if I am giving, does it do good or does it do harm? And even though giving is something that is seen as a good thing, it's not always good. And you should like be able to see different 360 perspectives of how it may impact a dynamic. And it's not just with the art of giving. I think it's just with any other virtues that are deemed good, like kindness, because with everything there's a light and dark. So it's like, what is the light of this? Kindness is a great thing, but then what could be the dark of kindness? And how do we navigate such scenarios and really make sure that we are moving from a very informed and an intentional place and non-assuming?
I love that. I love that. Any tips? Because she's very good at that. But she's so good. She did mention earlier that she went through her own awakening, and it was much. She evolved quicker than I in this area, because I used to judge her for being so measured in her giving. I remember, we used to go to those guys that park.
Yeah.
When you go and park your car, those guys that assist you, I would be the kind of person to like give them 20, 50, whatever I had, be like, yeah, let me give you something, you make your day great, whatever. And sometimes you get to a place, the guy's not there, you come back, he's put his tag, you reverse, he's not there. Just when you're about to leave, he appears out of nowhere, wants to take his tag and wants some money.
Yeah.
And Belle will just be like, I don't see you, I ain't giving you nothing. And I'm like, come on, at least $1, 5 pula. And when I
Zero.
then just later realize, like, actually she's right. Why am I so accustomed to giving people things that they haven't earned? So what do you think is a great system for somebody who's been overgiving or who hasn't even been really conscious of this, for them to adopt in addressing overgiving a sickness or syndrome?
I think we need to become responsible givers. And a tip that I would give is that you should always use your instincts, because not all scenarios are black and white. There are situations where you're going to meet people for the very first time and need to give because they've got absolutely nothing. You won't be able to measure that person and see if they are a person that can reciprocate, or if they're a good person. You don't have the history, the background of that person. But in that instance, you could literally listen to your heart and say, if I give this and I let it go, am I doing it for myself? Am I doing it as a calling for the now to be an angel in this person's life? And when you do that, do it and detach. I think that'll be the main tip. Just like use your instincts. And the second one would be sure and have clarity about who you are and the type of people that you want to have in your life. The reason why when I was that person it built resentment is because I like to have people in my life that reciprocate. So you would give thinking that people are similar to you and that they would reciprocate, but you didn't take the time out to study the type of people that they are. So now it's just like, okay, I have a clarity about myself, the things that I want to experience, and I want people who reciprocate because I want to give without measure, and that's the measurement of it all. To say, I don't want to have to be measuring and calculating one tebes, giving somebody zero, doing this. I'm a giver and I want to have that aspect about me freely lived. So I need to ensure that I have people in my life that cultivate me living this freely. And that means having other givers around who, as I'm busy giving and seeing their blind spots and saying, let me fill this up with here, I know that they are having the same responsibility with my life, so that we navigate life as a community. Because life is tough, guys. Like, nobody wants to be around leeches. Nobody has time for leeches. Like, go and be with other leeches over there and leech on yourselves.
They don't attract each other.
The irony. Opposites attract. That's the irony.
They
of
don't.
it all.
Yeah. I love that. And for me, it's also in the same light is being open to different methods of being given.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you are not able to receive because you expect the reciprocation to be the same. And so in the same breath is be very open to, I may give you something tangible, but you may give me back something not tangible, like time, like words of affirmation. But when energy,
Yeah.
energy is a big one.
Yeah.
And
Are you crying?
no, I'm not crying.
Okay.
And so I think sometimes being open to that. And then also, I loved your point about, nobody wants to be with anybody that doesn't reciprocate. And just emphasizing the point of community, that the whole idea of life is that we live in community and every single person in the community must add value, must be of use and utility. So even this idea that you can be in relationships where everybody's giving a lot, if you're that person who finds that people often complain about how much of a taker you are, maybe it's also time for you to reflect. What is it about you and your perceived lack of abundance? Because I think it comes from a place of thinking that you don't have anything to give.
Yeah.
That, you attract people who look at you and go, that one. And they're there. Like, by the way, there are people in that friendship groups where everybody knows how to you'll go all out and they'll all have that experience. I think we've there's a particular person I remember where we all dabbled and we all learned the hard way that this is how this person is. And so if you're that person as well, maybe it's a good time to reflect, because I don't think it's a healthy way to be. And I think we all want to kind of give and live harmoniously as a community. So
Yeah, definitely, guys. So you've heard it here. This is the new buzzword, the new concept: responsible giving, responsible receiving. Let's just make sure that we are dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and analyzing situations and being very intentional and deliberate about the world we're trying to create. And that begins with little things like this. Like, it's an odd topic, over giving, but it's a very necessary one, because if you want to have abundance in your life, you need to nip in the bud the areas where there are leakages that you can't see. And it's these type of concepts that we talk about that would help you in making sure that you're not having abundance leakages in your life. My name is Belse Abo Ame.
I am Shatani Somalakai.
And you've been watching
The Sapiosexual Platter.